Forget flashy tactics, or trying to be like this guy. This is the most important chess skill you're missing. Because what if I told you, instead of just sitting there collecting dust, your pawns could be up there, crushing your opponents? The only problem is, what will happen to this defenseless king? I spent days carefully studying Grandmaster games on the Lichess database, and it turns out, your deadliest attacking plan is launching a ferocious pawn storm. But if, and only if, you have one of these 3 conditions on the board, and these 3 instructive example games for each condition, make this a must-watch video for any chess player looking to enhance their attacking skill. The first condition is opposite side castling. These are some of the most aggressively volatile games in chess, and this general manager, with a lie on his username, has something interesting to teach us. His tool of choice? 1d4, the following moves, and knight c3, the Joe Bava London system, an opening in which you develop your queenside pieces first, and as you'll see in the following moves, this often leads to opposite side castling positions. But what's so special about these positions exactly? In same side castling positions, the pawns are tasked with keeping the king safe. This is true for both white and black, and pushing them forward comes with the great risk of simply getting mated. But as you can see in this position, there's no such risk. So, the best attacking plan is to simply fire away. But being the genius that you are, you've probably noticed that what you do to your opponent, they can do to you. That's the law of balance. You gave them Donald Trump, and they gave you Joe Biden. Black plays a6 preparing b5, but white responds with bishop h6, a somewhat confusing move. Clearly, white's best plan is pushing the h-pawn, destroying black's defensive structure, and going for the kill, right? The only problem is this annoying h5 move, forcing white to play for f3 and g4, a pawn sacrifice line, because this is a square black has immense control over. So, bishop h6 was played in the game, a dual-purpose move, seeking to trade black's key kingside defender while also fixing this pawn on h7, in preparation for white's h-pawn advance. The battle lines have been drawn. First to checkmate wins. Black plays b5, choosing to launch a quick pawn storm instead of fighting for the center first. But against a grandmother, that will almost always come back to bite you in the butt. f3 was played by white, solidifying the center, because after b4 and knight e2, the pawn on e4 is protected. And after a5, so is this pawn. This is high-level chess. You don't become a GM by giving away free pawns. Am I saying quit playing your tricky opening gambits? Maybe. h4 triggers white's pawn storm, but black decides to do a weird maneuver with his bishop. Bishop h6, h5, and then bishop c4. He does this because he correctly deduces that his bishop belongs on this diagonal, enhancing the pawn storm attack. But more significantly, he does this maneuver instead of simply placing his bishop on e6, because none of his pieces belong in the center. He did not invest time fighting for the center in the opening. So this is him in the middle game wasting precious moves working around the center. And this is me, a former 2300, criticizing the play of a 2800. Arrogance is a terrible trait, but this time I'm right. Because white's attack lands first. He initiates a series of captures followed by a check on h6 and king f7. The only piece protecting black from this deadly infiltration is the knight, but remember when I said none of black's pieces belong in the center? The move is e5, dislodging the knight. Followed by queen takes h7 check, king e8, and then, the insidious e6 pawn push. One terrible maneuver, and you get butchered. That's that grandmaster level attack. A phenomenon you may experience whenever you say something mean about women online. And deservedly so, because with high-level openings like the cow and the Botez gambit, women have been the key drivers of modern chess theory. There's a driving joke in there somewhere, but we like to keep things classy and respectful here at Mortal Chess. The idea is queen takes g6 check, and after rook f7, there are 2 ways to checkmate. Which is your preference? Anyway, black plays queen c8, giving his king some room to breathe. Queen takes g6 check, king d8, and now, to finish off the game, white has to find a way to get rid of this rook and deliver a back rank mate. If you're thinking of the disgusting move queen f7, hats off to you, you have master level tactical awareness. But how good is your calculation? Because if rook takes queen, rook h8 is checkmate. But what if rook e8? Did you see the insane follow-up? Queen takes rook check, followed by rook h8 checkmate? Unfortunately, queen f7 is not quite the killer move I made it look. And that's because of the slightly annoying move, knight d7 protecting the rook. How would you follow it up? Comment down below and show me you can switch gears from an exciting attack to to a less exciting but winning endgame. I like to mix the commentary with puzzles, as well as comedy. But if at any point you feel we've gone too long without a joke, pause the video, and think about your relationship. And while you're at it, look at the state of your nation. Anyway, white chose to maintain the pressure on the king and invest a few moves into his queenside. b3 hits the bishop, which captures the knight on e2, and after the knight retakes, black makes use of the hook created by the b3 move, by playing a4. Both attacks are looking deadly. The engine is screaming for queen f7, but white goes for king d2, anticipating black's a-file penetration. Takes, and rook a2 is played, eyeing the c2 soft spot. All black has to do is play c5, open up the c-file, and then descend upon the c2 pawn, but white plays knight c1, attacking the rook, which is followed by bishop c4 closing the c-file. That's that grandmaster level defense. A skill you may experience whenever you ask the love of your life to unlock her smartphone. A skill white is resorting to, because he missed a key chance to kill off the game. Moves like knight c3 are black's way of becoming as much of a nuisance as he can to white, but unfortunately for black, the key attacking idea comes to white just in time. Queen g7, hitting the rook, and after rook e8, white played rook h8, and how will you stop rook takes rook, followed by queen g8 checkmate? Think about it. The only move is queen d7, which black found, played, realized what it meant, felt disgusted, and resigned. Opposite side castling chess games have the most brutal endings, and as you shall see in the next two games, the reason is simple. Pawns don't go backwards, so whenever you attack with pawns, you go all out, but when exactly should you attack with the pawns? Whenever you have a locked center in chess, the flanks are the logical avenues of attack, but why attack with pawns instead of pieces? It's 1991 in Amsterdam. Garry Kasparov is black, he is the world champion, and he is in peak masculine form. That's because it's still 5 years until he disgraces the human race, by losing to a Windows 95 computer, and then throwing a huge temper tantrum. Knight f3 is played by Viktor Korchnoi, who in the opening tries his best to confuse the world champion, because this is the ready opening, but after knight f6, he plays c4, transposing to the classical English. g6 knight c3 bishop g7 and now we see e4, hinting at the Botvinnik English. But after d6, Korchnoi plays d4, and we are in pure King's Indian territory, the greatest chess opening, second only to the Nimzo Zimbabwean defense. Undefeated. 5,000 likes and I release the video. Castles, and after bishop e2, preparing to castle on the same side as black, the world champion stakes claim in the center with e5. He knows his chess fundamentals. White castles, and knight c6 by Garry Kasparov, puts more pressure on the center, provoking the move d5 by Viktor Korchnoi, and after the following knight moves. This is the position on the board. Both kings have castled short, the center is locked, and this is black's best attacking plan, delivered to you via robot voice. And for those having trouble understanding the AI voice, let me know how you made it through 5 years of this lovely soul. Anyway, when the center is locked, the arrow from base central pawn to tip points to where you have the space advantage. In this position, black will have kingside space advantage, and white will have the queenside space advantage. In chess, you always attack where you have the advantage, so white must launch a queenside attack, and black must attack on the kingside. But why attack with pawns? Surely that's risky. Well, yes, but not as risky as you think. This locked center means that in the short term, this is the safest king on the board. White's pieces simply have no direct route via the center towards black's king. If they choose this route, they will collide with an avalanche of pawns, backed by minor pieces, on the side of the board where black has the space advantage. It's like approaching your crush when she's with a group of friends. It's a feminist rally, and her brothers who play football are there for some reason. Also, you look like this, and she is a Catholic nun. Do you get the sense of just how terrible a plan this is? White's best bet is defending his kingside, launching a queenside pawn storm, and winning a superior endgame. So bishop e3 is played, aiming at queenside play, and Kasparov launches the first pawn, f5. f3 is the response, creating a square for the bishop in preparation for f4. These are two world champion level players, and with these two pawn moves, they make their intentions clear. The question is, which attack will land first? Both sides place their knights behind the pawns to aid their attack. c5 by white is met with h5, because in these positions, you want to focus on your own attack and not make moves on your opponent's side of the board, unless you absolutely have to. That's why I'm a bit confused by Korchnoi's decision to play the move h3 in this position. It does not stop g4, it creates a target for a thematic king's Indian defense bishop sacrifice, and it's one less move invested in his own attack. I think I could beat Viktor Korchnoi in a chess game. Anyway, f7 is where this rook belongs, says Kasparov. It maintains kingside pressure, but also keeps an eye on the queenside in case it's needed in defense. That's that double-purpose optimization. The same sock you wear to work. You know what, let's not go there. c6 is played by white looking to break open black's queenside, and black responds with a5, in an attempt to slow down white's infiltration. Takes and after b4 white will soon have a passed pawn on the a file. Kasparov repositions his bishop, because instead of being on b7, it's much better placed on c8, looking at h3 and aiding a potential g4 break in the future. A takes b5. White creates two passed pawns on the a file which, given the state of the passed pawns, isn't as scary as it sounds, but if this game progresses to an endgame, this is enough of an advantage for white to win. Bishop h6, black has to get that checkmate before the inevitable happens on the queenside. Knight b4 is played, aiming at this juicy c6 outpost, but black responds with g4, the long-awaited pawn break. After knight c6, hitting the mother monarch, and queen f8, Korchnoi decides to address the kingside situation. A series of captures occur, after which black plays bishop g5, a weird move. A weird move with the deadly idea of clearing the h-file for the heavy pieces. White plays bishop f3, solidifying his light square structure. But on the black pieces is Garry Kasparov, arguably the sharpest attacking player ever, and he smells blood on the h-file. He plays queen h6, and Viktor Korchnoi responds with rook e1, creating an escape path for his king, because the temperature is rising rapidly on the h-file. Knight h4 is played, threatening the piece holding this entire structure together, and Viktor Korchnoi decides to keep his light squared bishop. I personally would be hitting the road at this point. But bishop takes h4 is followed by bishop takes h4, giving black total dark square domination. But it's worse than that. Because the only square this rook has, which does not lose the game on the spot, cuts off the protection of this pawn. So Korchnoi gives it up for free. There is value in playing such moves when you're totally lost. Sometimes your opponent immerses himself in calculating all the brutal ways he can put you to the sword. He messes up the move order, and hangs the queen on the next move. This is not one of those times. Queen takes g5, and after rook e2, black brings in another attacking piece with knight g4, and dares white to capture it. No thank you, rook b1 instead. A move played in the hope that white will somehow find the time to trade this rook, promote this pawn, and play for a win. But after bishop g3, queen d3 and queen h4, all hope was abandoned. White resigned. Why? The idea is queen h2 check, king f1 and queen h1 checkmate. But if you're thinking the rook can move to b2 for example, creating a safe square for the king on e2. I thought so too. Until I turned on the engine and realized that knight e3 is just lights out. The king is stuck in a mating net, and a move like queen takes e3, instead of resigning, is considered disrespectful in professional chess. But personally, I think the disrespect is what Kasparov did, pushing his pawns up the board like that. A chess skill you will fully appreciate once you master this final condition. d4 d5, knight c3 knight f6 and bishop f4, is the Joe Bava London system. But what's special is that, on the white pieces, is your beloved commentator, Mortal Chess himself, or herself. Who are we kidding? You know I'm a guy. This is me, actually. Born in Zimbabwe, I was a semi-pro footballer in high school, until an MCL injury ended my dreams. I went to Iran, got a degree in mechanical engineering, and came back home to, wait for it, start a zombie chess channel. My journey on this blue planet has been anything but ordinary, but I've discovered something incredible. I love teaching chess, more than I ever enjoyed designing jet engines. Now, here's where you come in. Creating quality content takes time, effort, and yes, money. That's why I've turned to Patreon. With your support, I can hire an editor and finally bring all these chess openings you've been demanding in the comments section to life. I'm talking about uploading twice a week, keeping almost all my educational content free, and offering some epic perks, just for my patrons. Want to play weekly chess tournaments with me? Have your games roasted? I mean, reviewed on YouTube? Or vote on the next opening I'll dive into? And for my American friends, God bless America. I will personally count your vote twice, because, well, it probably won't be counted in the upcoming election. Anyway, so, if you're ready to support the channel, or just want to see my devilishly handsome face, click the first link in the description and check out my Patreon. But right now, You're about to find out how I cook. Because after these normal moves, knight e5 and castles, this is one of those rare positions where, the center isn't locked, the kings are not castled on opposite sides, but the position is ripe for a pawn storm. Why? Honestly, teaching this is a little above my rating, but if you ever find yourself in such a position where, there is a piece you can gain tempo on. And by that I mean you can push your pawns forward, and each pawn push comes with a direct threat to that piece. You also have some minor and heavy pieces aimed at your opponent's king, and you don't mind taking the occasional risk. Close your eyes, say a prayer, and then lash out with g4. After bishop g6, I played h4, threatening to trap the bishop. My opponent does not have time to break open the center, and make my uncastled king regret the time wasted pushing flank pawns. But c5 proved to be an irresistible temptation for him. What does this mean? After h5 and f3, I win the bishop. But in return, I have a very unsafe king stuck in the middle of the board. Is it a fair exchange? Stockfish says no, it's about a+2 advantage for white. Black initiates a series of captures in a bid to open up the center, which is why after bishop takes f3 and queen takes f3, he plays knight e4, sacrificing a pawn. Because after takes, the d file is now open, and my king is stuck on e1. His only problem is that he has traded all the pieces that would have posed deadly threats to my uncastled king, and after the final mistake, queen b6 hitting the b2 pawn, I simply castled long. My pawn is now protected, my king is safe, and I have an extra piece. But as you shall see, the deadliest threat to black's king are these advanced flank pawns. Black develops his knight to c6, and your favorite chess teacher plays bishop d3, threatening mate. And after g6 takes, ladies and gentlemen, this chicken is now deep fried. I played a disgusting move that made my opponent resign on the spot.
Mrs. caught, Sister Abigail!
Y'all thought I was joking when I said that I could take Viktor Korchnoi. The threat is queen takes g6 checkmate, but if king takes the rook, it's queen takes g6 check, and then queen h7 checkmate. The only move that doesn't lose on the spot is rook f5. After which, the simple rook h1 should give you an idea of what would happen if you ever challenged me to a chess game. I'm something of a Joe Baba London system expert, but I didn't start out this way. In this video, I explain the ideas of the opening in great detail, and I tell several inappropriate jokes, so leave a like and let's meet on the other side.